At 85, Ali McGraw's voice carries a kind of peace that only survivors understand. After half a century of silence, the woman once called Hollywood's sweetheart has finally revealed the truth she once swore she'd take to her grave. The truth about a Steve McQueen, the man the world adored, but the man who nearly destroyed her spirit behind closed doors. To the outside world, they were untouchable, the king of cool and the queen of grace. Every photograph captured perfection. Every magazine called them destiny. But when the cameras stopped rolling and the house lights dimmed, the fairy tale faded, replaced by jealousy, control, and a love that slowly became a cage. What began as an intoxicating romance on the set of The Getaway in 1972 would turn into a lesson in survival. The chemistry between them was undeniable, electric, raw, and impossible to fake. He admired her elegance. She was drawn to his danger. They were both married, she to Robert Evans, he to Neely Adams. But desire has never cared about rules. Within months, both marriages collapsed, and Hollywood had a new obsession, the most beautiful disaster it had ever seen. Yet behind that glamour, the cracks began to spread. When Ali McGraw married Steve McQueen in 1973, it seemed like a story written for the ages. The rebel and the romantic joined under the California sun. Photographers crowded their Malibu ceremony, desperate to capture the smile of the bride and the swagger of the groom. But even that day, behind his sunglasses, McQueen's eyes burned with unease. He hated attention, mistrusted the press, and feared being eclipsed by the woman he loved. To the world, they were Hollywood's golden couple. To Ali, it soon felt like walking on glass. McQueen began demanding that she stay home, that she stop working, that she live only for him. Roles that could have secured her career, films offered by top directors, were rejected under his command. Hollywood isn't safe, he told her. Men there can't be trusted. What he really meant was that he couldn't stand to share her light. Her world shrank to the walls of their ranch, where his moods ruled every hour. In public, they were flawless, the rebel husband and the devoted wife. But when the doors closed, silence filled the rooms. There were shouting matches, slammed doors, long nights of waiting alone while he vanished into the darkness, racing, drinking, or chasing something she couldn't name. Ali tried to love the rage out of him. Instead, she found herself erasing pieces of who she was, just to keep the peace. The smile the world adored became a mask, one that grew heavier each day. By the mid-70s, McQueen's jealousy had become infamous. He read her scripts, questioned her calls, even timed her errands. Every gesture of love carried suspicion. Every word risked an explosion. Behind the legend of Hollywood's coolest man lived a storm of fear and control. And by the time The Towering Inferno made him the highest paid actor in the world, Ali had disappeared from the screen entirely, fading from a star to shadow, from wife to prisoner. By the mid-1970s, the balance of power between them was gone. What the world called devotion was, in truth, domination disguised as love. Steve McQueen, who demanded control on every movie set, now demanded it in their home. Every script, every phone call, every friendship passed through his approval. He told her that the industry was poison, that everyone wanted to use her, and at first that sounded protective, until she realized painfully that he was cutting every lifeline she had. The woman who once represented independence for an entire generation now lived according to his rules, his friends, his schedule. The once lively house in Malibu turned into a quiet fortress. Guests noticed the tension that hung in the air. One wrong word could shatter the fragile calm. McQueen's charm could fill a room. His temper could clear it. Allie learned quickly that peace depended on surrender. She dressed how he liked. She stayed silent. When he grew angry, she learned to smile through fear. Studio executives called with new offers. Scripts from world-renowned directors appeared at her door. McQueen intercepted them all. Sometimes he'd read them aloud, mocking the lines before tossing them aside. "You're too good for that junk," he'd sneer. But what he really feared was her freedom. When a major studio offered her a leading role opposite Paul Newman, McQueen laughed coldly. "No wife of mine will ever kiss another man on camera." That movie went on to win awards. Allie stayed home. Each year, the walls grew tighter. He tracked her phone calls, timed her grocery trips, demanded to know who she'd spoken to. On set, he ordered assistants to report back if any man talked to her too long. The woman who had once moved through life with confidence now moved with caution, measuring her words, reading his moods, anticipating his storms. Fear replaced affection. Her love became survival. By 1976, the illusion of their perfect marriage had shattered behind closed doors. The once golden couple had become strangers sharing the same silence. McQueen, now paranoid and restless, trusted no one, not directors, not agents, not even the woman who loved him. He drank more, slept less, and raged at invisible enemies. For Allie, every day became a performance, a fragile act of survival. If she stayed quiet, he accused her of being distant. If she spoke, he called her defiant. There was no right answer, only endurance. Her friends noticed the change first. The bright, confident woman from Love a Story had dimmed into someone hollow, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. She moved carefully, spoke softly, and smiled only when necessary, as if every gesture had to pass through a filter of fear. Her friends begged her to leave, but she told them they didn't understand. "He can be kind," she said. "He needs me." In truth, she was terrified. McQueen's power didn't end at home. Even Hollywood feared his temper. The final collapse began quietly. His affairs were no longer secrets. His infidelities became habits. Allie's heartbreak turned into numbness. One night, after another explosion of rage, she simply left. She drove until dawn, her hands trembling on the wheel, her chest hollow. For the first time in years, there was peace. No shouting, no accusations, just silence. And in that silence, she realized what love had become, a wound that refused to heal. When she returned home the next morning, McQueen acted as though nothing had happened. That was the moment she knew. The man she had married no longer existed. In his place stood a stranger consumed by fear, pride, and control. So she packed her things, no screaming, no tears, just a quiet decision, the kind that saves a life. To the tabloids, it was another Hollywood breakup. But to Allie, it was an escape. She hadn't lost her marriage. She had reclaimed her freedom. In 1978, the divorce made headlines across the world. To the press, it was just another Hollywood tragedy. Too star, too wild to last. But those close to Allie knew better. What she had walked away from wasn't a failed marriage, it was survival. She moved into a small home in Malibu, far from the mansion she had shared with McQueen. For the first time in years, there was quiet. No slammed doors, no orders, no fear. But that silence came with its own haunting. Even after she left him, she still flinched at sudden noises. She still checked the clock without realizing. Still wondered if she had done something wrong. The habits of survival ran deep. Friends described her as fragile, like a woman learning how to breathe again. Hollywood, sensing a story, came calling. Producers offered a script, hoping to capitalize on her heartbreak. She refused them all. She wasn't ready to play another role, not when she was still discovering who she really was. Meanwhile, McQueen's life spiraled downward. He drowned himself in racing, alcohol, and younger women. His health declined, but his pride refused to admit it. Even after their divorce, he tried to control the story, telling reporters that Ollie was the problem, that she never understood him. Ali stayed silent. She didn't fight back, didn't defend herself. That silence became her armor. When she finally spoke again, it wasn't to journalists, it was in quiet conversations with friends. She admitted that leaving him had nearly broken her, but staying would have destroyed her completely. She said she still loved parts of him, his brilliance, his humor, his restless soul. But she had stopped confusing love with a safety. That realization became her turning point. Healing, she discovered, didn't begin when she left Steve. It began the moment she stopped blaming herself for his pain. In the early 1980s, Ali McGraw quietly disappeared from Hollywood. While others chased fame, she sought peace. She found it in New Mexico, a place of silence, sunlight, and second chances. There, she built a new life rooted in yoga, community, and spiritual healing. For the first time in decades, she wasn't an actress or an ex-wife or a symbol of anyone else's story. She was simply Ali, a woman learning to exist without fear. When Steve McQueen died of cancer in 1980, Ali grieved him deeply. She didn't speak with anger, but with sorrow, for the man he had been and the man he could never become. She wished peace for him, even as she acknowledged the scars he left behind. Years later, when she finally began to speak publicly about their marriage, her tone wasn't vengeful. It was calm, reflective, and heartbreakingly honest. She never used the word abuse. She didn't have to. Her story said enough. She spoke of control, of fear, of the quiet erosion of identity that happens when love turns into possession. It wasn't one grand moment of collapse, she once said softly. It was 1,000 small compromises that added up to a disappearance. Ali refused to portray McQueen as a villain. She recognized his brilliance, his insecurity, his loneliness. She understood how fame and fear twisted him into something he couldn't control, but she never excused it. You can love someone's spirit, she said, and still know that their presence nearly destroyed yours. That single line became a revelation to women everywhere. Letters poured in from fans who had once envied her, now thanking her. Her honesty gave them permission to speak about their own pain. And in that, Ali McGraw, once a symbol of love and beauty, became something far more powerful, a symbol of survival. Today, at 85, Ali McGraw lives far from the glitter of Hollywood, in a quiet home in Santa Fe filled with books, sunlight, and the soft footsteps of her dogs. She rarely attends reunions or award shows. The woman who once defined beauty and grace now finds joy in solitude. Her house is a reflection of her journey, peaceful, simple, grounded, no framed movie posters, no reminders of red carpets, only a stillness. Because peace, for Ali, isn't the absence of pain. It's the acceptance of what survived after it. When asked if she ever forgave Steve McQueen, she pauses for a long moment and answers softly, I forgive myself first. That single sentence captures everything her story became. It isn't about revenge or bitterness or rewriting history. It's about reclaiming her truth, the one buried for decades beneath the legend of a Hollywood romance. The world still remembers Steve McQueen as the king of cool, the man with the smirk, the car, the swagger, but time has a way of revealing what fame hides. And now Ali's voice, quiet but unwavering, has finally balanced that legacy. She doesn't speak of tragedy anymore, she speaks of a strength, of how love can bruise and heal in equal measure, of how a silence can protect, but truth can set you free. The cameras may have stopped rolling long ago, but Ali McGraw's final act is still unfolding, one of peace, dignity, and freedom finally earned. Because in the end, her greatest achievement wasn't love a story, it was surviving her own,